always tough with the Browns. I think Shedeur should be quarterback number one. I think he has what it takes, and the other quarterbacks haven't been working there, and just because someone's getting paid more doesn't mean that they should be starting. That's my positioning on it.
Look, I get it. When Jake Paul starts talking about football, your first instinct is probably to roll your eyes and keep scrolling. The guy's a YouTuber turned boxer. What does he know about the NFL, right? But then he said something about Shedeur Sanders that actually made me stop and think. I think Shedeur Sanders should be quarterback number one. Just because someone's getting paid the most doesn't mean they should be starting. I think you should give the young kid a shot. And honestly, that hit different. Because here's the thing. We've all seen this play out before. In football, in our jobs, in life. The guy making the most money isn't always the best person for the job. Sometimes it's the hungry kid sitting on the bench who's got something to prove. Jake wasn't just throwing out a hot take for clicks either. He actually broke it down. He talked about how Shedeur can extend plays, how he's got that scramble ability, how he can make things happen when the pocket breaks down. And he said if the kid learns to stay calm under pressure and trust his reads, he could be special. Now fast forward to yesterday. Joe Flacco, the veteran who was ahead of Shedeur on the depth chart, just got traded to the Bengals. Gone. And suddenly, Shedeur's one spot closer to being the starter in Cleveland. Coincidence? Maybe. But it makes you wonder if Jake Paul saw something the rest of us were too caught up in traditional thinking to notice. See, that's the thing about outsiders. Sometimes they call it before the people on the inside do. They're not stuck in the "this is how we've always done it" mindset. They just look at the talent and say what everyone else is thinking, but won't say out loud. So yeah, laugh at Jake Paul all you want. But on this one, he might have been right before anyone else had the guts to say it. The question now is, how long does Cleveland wait before they find out?
Shedeur is way better than Dillon Gabriel. He just is. If Shedeur had started from the start, game one against Cincinnati at home, they would be the talk of the NFL right now because I look at the fourth quarter yesterday, they go 0 for 4 on third down because Dillon was playing not to lose. Don't throw it to them, don't put it on the ground. And he did a great job of that. But on one of those third downs, you have to try to make a play to win the football game. And trust me, no matter what Stefanski called, Shedeur would try to win the football game because it's how he was raised. You're going to make a play because you were born to make a play.
You can say whatever you want about stats, systems, or schemes, but anyone who watched that game knows the truth. Shedeur Sanders is simply a better quarterback than Dillon Gabriel. If Shedeur had started from week one, that home opener against Cincinnati, the Browns would be one of the most talked about teams in the league right now. They wouldn't just be chasing relevance, they'd define it. Because what we saw in that fourth quarter wasn't bad coaching. It was fear. 4 straight third downs, 4 chances to move the chains, and every single time, Gabriel played not to lose. You could see it in his body language. No risk, no edge, no instinct to go win the game. Just survive the drive. And that's where Shedeur is different. He doesn't manage moments, he attacks them. When the game tightens, he looks for the throw that changes it. When the pressure builds, he steps into it instead of backing away. That's not arrogance, that's wiring. It's how he was raised by a man who taught him that great players don't wait for permission to take over. They just do. So when I look at that fourth quarter, I don't see a coaching issue. I see a quarterback problem. Because the Browns had a chance to win, but the guy under center didn't believe he could make that play. Shedeur would have. Not because the call was perfect, but because he was built for that moment. And until Cleveland figures that out, they'll keep playing not to lose, while the guy born to win keeps waiting on the sideline.
It's the biggest travesty in the history of the National Football League. And if he ever gets his chance, God willing, he will seize it and make them all look like fools.
Do you think he's going to play this year?
You go with Dillon Gabriel for 5 games or 6 games, and surely you're going to lose almost all of them, if not all of them. Give him the bottom of the schedule because he got his chance flukishly and he balled out.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, it's just the preseason, but you could see him on stage.
You want to talk about silence? Let's talk about Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. The kid went quiet, Not because he lost confidence, but because the organization made him. And that right there might be one of the biggest travesties in modern NFL history. You draft a quarterback with pedigree, presence, and poise, and then you tell him to sit quietly while the franchise sinks under mediocrity. Let's be real. If Shedeur ever gets his chance, God willing, he's going to seize it, and every single critic who doubted him is going to look foolish. You can feel it. It's not arrogance. It's inevitability. Because right now, Cleveland's running with Dillon Gabriel. Safe, predictable, conservative football. 5, maybe 6 games of it. And then what? Loss after loss, drive after drive of almost. At some point, the fans are going to see it. The locker room's going to feel it. You can only play not to lose for so long before everyone starts asking, where's the kid? Remember the preseason? You can dismiss it all you want, say it was just August football, but Shedeur looked like he belonged on that stage. Calm, composed, commanding. He didn't just play snaps, he owned moments. So now we wait. Cleveland waits, because one day when the excuses run out and desperation sets in, they're going to hand him that football. And when they do, he won't just play well. He'll remind the league what happens when you silence the wrong man.
Shedeur Sanders is fighting for his football life. Like whether you think, and I'm a guy that liked Shedeur and felt like he should have gone in the first round. But whether you think Shedeur is getting, blackballed, or whether you think the Browns just don't like him, or whatever you think, the fact is every team in the league passed on him multiple times. And the team he's on, he's third string behind a 40-year-old. Here's the interesting thing, because if I was a reporter covering the Browns, and I'm guessing some of their reporters are, I would be going to players.
You can say whatever you want about Shedeur Sanders, but right now, the kid is fighting for his football life. And before you roll your eyes or throw out excuses, let's deal in facts, not feelings. Every team in the NFL had a shot to draft him. Every single one. And they all passed on him. Not once, not twice, multiple times. So here's my question. How does a quarterback with elite pedigree, poise, and production fall all the way down the board while teams take chances on guys who can't read a defense? You can call it politics, you can call it personality, you can call it bias, but you can't call it fair. And now in Cleveland, what happens, he's sitting third string, behind Dillon Gabriel, a rookie still learning how to breathe NFL air, and a 40-year-old quarterback who's just trying to finish his career in peace. Tell me that makes sense. This isn't about potential anymore. It's about perception. Because if Shedeur's name wasn't Sanders, if he didn't carry that spotlight or that swagger, he'd probably already have a playbook with his name on the front. And you know what nobody's talking about? The people inside that building. If I were covering the Browns, I'd be asking those players what they see in practice. Who throws the best ball? Who commands the huddle? Who actually moves the offense? Because those guys know. They always know. And you can bet the whispers are already starting. Something's off in Cleveland, whether it's politics, pride, or plain old fear of being wrong. But one thing's for sure. Talent like Shedeur's doesn't just fade into the background. He's not a backup. He's a waiting storm. And when his number's finally called, he's going to expose every team that passed on him and every coach that kept him quiet.
I was trying to pull the Shedeur Sanders there. So obviously he addressed the questions, but did it in a way where we couldn't hear him speak. He chose to pantomime his answers. Stephen A., when you see that video, what's your reaction?
I'm not going to overreact to it. I'm just going to say that he has to know that other people are going to look at him and consider that immature.
It was supposed to be a routine moment. Shedeur Sanders facing questions from the media. But instead of answering, he went silent. No words, no sound, just pantomime, gestures instead of statements. And instantly, the clip went viral. People didn't know whether to laugh, defend him, or call it disrespect. When Stephen A. Smith saw it, he didn't explode. He stayed measured. He said, I'm not going to overreact to it, but he has to know people are going to look at that and consider it immature. And that's the debate, isn't it? Was Shedeur making a statement or just making a mistake? Because there's two ways to look at this. On one hand, the kid's tired of the noise, tired of the narratives, tired of being spoken about instead of spoken to. So he chose silence, control through composure. But on the other hand, this is the NFL. Image matters. Body language becomes headlines. And when you pantomime instead of speaking, you give the critics fuel to say, see, he's not ready. So what do we call this moment? Confidence or immaturity? Was it defiance or discipline? Because in a city already divided over who should be QB1, every gesture gets magnified. And silence? Silence is louder than words. Look, let's be honest. The moment Jake Paul said Shedeur Sanders should be quarterback number 1, the entire sports world rolled their eyes. They laughed, they scoffed, they called it clickbait, another Jake Paul stunt to chase views. But here's the thing nobody wants to admit. He wasn't wrong. He just said the quiet part out loud before anyone else had the courage to say it. Because when you peel back the layers, when you look past the paychecks, the politics, and the pecking order, what you find is a truth that's been sitting in plain sight. Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback in Cleveland. He's just the only one not allowed to prove it. And now the timing looks almost prophetic. Days after Jake Paul said that, Joe Flacco, the supposed safety blanket, the supposed experienced hand, got shipped off to the Bengals. Gone. Vanished from the building like a ghost from the old guard. And suddenly, Shedeur is one spot closer to being the starter in Cleveland. Coincidence? Maybe. But it makes you wonder if Jake Paul saw something the rest of us were too caught up in traditional thinking to notice. See, that's the thing about outsiders. Sometimes they call it before the people on the inside do. They're not stuck in the "this is how we've always done it" mindset. They just look at the talent and say what everyone else is thinking but won't say out loud. So yeah, laugh at Jake Paul all you want. But on this one, he might have been right before anyone else had the guts to say it. Now here's where it gets wild. This isn't just a sports story. This is about power. This is about a system that says wait your turn, even when you're ready to lead. It's about a culture that fears the rise of confidence, especially when it's packaged in prime DNA. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a brand. He's a movement. He's a mirror reflecting everything the old NFL doesn't want to see. Youth, swagger, independence, and unapologetic control over his own narrative. That's not arrogance. That's evolution. And evolution always scares tradition. So when people like Jake Paul, outsiders, disruptors, start calling it before the insiders do, that's when you know something is shifting. Because let's be real, the fans see it, the locker room feels it. And deep down, even the front office knows it. This isn't about earning it anymore. This is about proving them wrong. Because every snap Dillon Gabriel plays safe, every third down the Browns waste trying to not lose, that silence on the sideline gets louder. And you can feel it building, the tension, the frustration, the inevitability. At some point, Cleveland has to choose between protecting its pride or unleashing its potential. And when that moment comes, when Shedeur finally steps onto that field, not as a backup, not as a fill-in, but as the guy, it won't just be a football game. It'll be a reckoning. Every scout that doubted him, every analyst that knocked him, every team that passed on him, they all gonna have to watch him take that same spotlight they denied him and make it his home. Because this story was never about whether Shedeur could play. It's about whether the NFL was ready for him. And here's the twist. Maybe Jake Paul was right all along. Maybe it takes an outsider to see greatness before it's fashionable. Maybe it takes someone who's been doubted, ridiculed, and underestimated their whole career to recognize that same fire in another man. So laugh all you want. Mock Jake Paul for being a YouTuber. Clown Shedeur for being prime son. But when that kid finally gets his chance, when the cameras are rolling, when the lights hit his visor, when Cleveland is desperate for a miracle, He's going to do what he's always done. He's going to deliver. And when he does, the same voices calling him immature, unready, or privileged will suddenly find themselves calling him something else entirely. QB1. Because silence doesn't mean surrender. It means preparation. And when the silence breaks, the league's gonna hear him loud and clear. I told you I was built for this. If you respect Shedeur's grind, if you believe he's next up, like this video right now. Comment SS 100% if you rocking with Shedeur and you tired of seeing him bench behind fear. Because the revolution's not coming. It's already on the sideline warming up.